It wasn't the words that haunted me. It was the time. 2:43 in the morning. When everyone's asleep, except the people who plan things they shouldn't. Her message wasn't meant for me, but it changed everything. Can you guess who it was meant for? Quick pause. Subscribe if you're still with me, and let me know where you're tuning in from. My name's Erin.
I'm 38.
I live in a quiet part of Fort Wayne, Indiana, in one of those HOA-run neighborhoods with perfect lawns and family decals on the back windows. Nothing here looks wrong, but that doesn't mean it isn't. It started on a Tuesday. Not that Tuesdays mean anything here. The days blur together when your life looks good on paper. The kids were asleep. My husband, Matt, was downstairs in his office, the studio, he called it now, fiddling with his mic setup for a podcast he hadn't launched in 2 years. I was in bed scrolling Zillow. Not because we needed to move, but because sometimes I liked imagining houses where she didn't know the code to the garage. My mother-in-law, Denise, lived 2 cul-de-sacs over. She had the same security keypad we did. Same porch furniture. Same babysitter. It was her idea when we bought this house. We'll be closer. It'll be easier, she'd said.
And it was easier.
For her. She had keys to our house. Passwords to our Instacart. Access to our Ring history. Just in case something ever happened, Matt had said. But it didn't start like this. It started small. A hairbrush moved from the drawer to the countertop. A bottle of lotion she kept restocking, just for the baby, that smelled like her perfume. A lunch bill mysteriously paid before I got to it. And the texts. So many texts.
Checking in.
Offering help. Gently correcting my parenting. You're doing amazing, she'd say, then follow it with a tip I hadn't asked for. A suggestion I hadn't welcomed. A reminder that her son had grown up on less sleep than I was getting, and turned out just fine. She played the long game. For 8 years, Denise was everything to everyone. The cheerful widow at church who ran 3 committees, hosted Christmas Eve, and helped me balance things when my mom got sick. She remembered birthdays with flower deliveries and sent casseroles with handwritten instructions. People adored her, including me, once. But then came the first weird thing. It was subtle. An insurance bill mailed to our house that said secondary household. I showed Matt and he shrugged. Said maybe it was a mistake. She probably used our address for something small. She had done that before. 2 months later, I found a pharmacy bag in our fridge. Antibiotics for C. Walters. That's her maiden name. Not Denise Walters. Just C. Walters. When I asked her about it, she smiled too much and said she used a pseudonym for privacy. I wanted to believe that. But something about the fridge, the medicine, the smile, it stuck. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wandered into the kitchen and stood there in the dark. No light. Just the soft hum of the fridge and the faint blue glow of the Ring camera by the back door. It flickered. I looked at the model. That flicker wasn't supposed to happen. Not unless someone else was watching live. Denise had the login. She insisted on it years ago when our oldest was born. Just in case, she'd said again. I changed the password that night. Quietly. The next morning, she texted at 6:12 a.m. Is everything okay? I noticed you took down the feed. I hadn't told anyone. Not even Matt. That's when the silence began to shift. Matt grew distant, but not in a way that looked wrong. More tired. More reserved. When I asked if something was bothering him, he'd brush my arm and say, "You're imagining things again." Again. Like when Denise said I overreacted about the pharmacy bag. Or when she accidentally booked our anniversary babysitter for her sorority reunion and said she forgot to check our calendar. Or when my birthday dinner got mysteriously canceled because the reservation was never confirmed. And the confirmation email was gone from my inbox. It all sounds small, doesn't it? Tiny things. Little chips. But try watching your own life get sanded down with a nail file.
Slowly.
Lovingly.
Carefully.
Until the night she texted. I wasn't supposed to see that message. I was in bed, half asleep, when my phone lit up. The screen glowed against the wall like a flashlight under a blanket. I ignored it at first, but it kept buzzing. 2, 3, 4 times. All from the same number, Denise. At 2:43 a.m. The first thing I noticed was the timestamp. Then I saw the message. A full paragraph, long enough to require scrolling. She's unraveling again. I'm trying to keep Matt stable, but it's exhausting pretending she's not getting worse. I'll talk to him alone this weekend like we planned. It has to come from him. I sat up. There was no greeting. No context. Just those words. Like a letter she'd been writing in her head for weeks. And then another message followed.
Wait.
Sorry, wrong person. That one made my stomach cold. She hadn't meant to send it to me. She hadn't meant for me to know. I opened the message again and reread the line. It has to come from him. What did that mean? I didn't reply. I didn't wake Matt. I just stared at the screen until it dimmed, holding the phone like it might catch fire. The next morning, she pretended it didn't happen. She dropped by with a tray of banana bread and her usual overenthusiastic smile. She asked how the kids were, complimented my robe, and told me I looked tired, but in a pretty way. When I didn't answer, she cocked her head, like she always did when I didn't play my part. You okay, sweetheart? I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. My own version of self-defense. And told her we were fine. Later that afternoon, I went to the one place she never followed me. The library. I sat in the farthest corner, logged into the guest Wi-Fi, and started digging. First, I pulled up our family group chat archives. On the surface, it was full of blessings and baby pictures. But I noticed something. Subtle shifts in tone. Comments under my posts that felt layered. Like she was replying to something I hadn't said. Then I checked Matt's shared Google Drive. I wasn't snooping. I was surviving. There it was. A folder labeled House Talk. Inside were notes. Literal bullet points. With my name on them. Things like, Erin doesn't like crowds, possibly agoraphobia? She skipped 2 playdates, maybe depressed again. Should we get legal clarity on house co-ownership if she regresses? Regresses? We didn't own the house with Denise. Or so I thought. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I sat in our guest bathroom with the vent running, scrolling through old text threads. One from 3 years ago stood out. Denise offering to help streamline our mortgage documents during a refinance. I remembered signing things in a rush while feeding our youngest. No lawyer, just help. I searched the county property site. My hands shook as I typed. 3 names appeared on the deed.
Matt. Me.
And C. Walters. Not Denise Walters. C. Walters. Her maiden name again. Quiet. Legally separate from the woman who brought banana bread and called herself Mom in church circles. That night, the Ring camera flickered again. But this time, I had changed the password. No one should have had access. I walked downstairs slowly. The baby monitor was silent. The hallway was dark. But as I turned the corner, I noticed something off. The front door's keypad light was blinking. It had been unlocked. Just for a second. Then relocked. No sound. No footsteps. Just that quiet little blink. Like a ghost pressing its fingerprint on the air. The next morning, Matt said the weirdest thing. You need to be more careful what you say to my mom. It was out of nowhere. No lead up. Just dropped in like a warning. I asked him what he meant and he said, she told me you're starting to accuse her of things. I hadn't. I'd said nothing.
Ides milat.
Accepted banana bread. Played along. Which meant she was setting the table. For something. I looked at him and asked, do you believe her? He didn't answer right away. That pause. Maybe 3 seconds. Split my life in 2. That pause stayed with me longer than his answer ever could have. 3 seconds doesn't sound like much. But when you're waiting to see whether the person you married believes you, or the story someone else planted, it stretches. It breathes. It watches you. Matt finally said, I just think she worries about you. Worries. That word again. Always concern. Never accusation. Never blame. Just gentle worry that somehow always landed on me like a diagnosis. That night, after he fell asleep, I went back downstairs and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop closed. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't want to feel observed. I could still hear Denise's voice in my head from years of church brunches and fake apology conversations.
Calm. Soft. Certain.
I realized something then. Something uncomfortable. She didn't need to prove anything. She just needed to suggest. And suggestions, repeated long enough, turn into memory. I opened my laptop and began documenting everything. Not emotionally. Methodically.
Dates. Times.
Screenshots. File names. I made a folder and named it House Records. Neutral. Boring. Safe. Inside it, I placed the deed, the refinance documents, the insurance correspondence with secondary household listed. Then I pulled phone logs. Denise's number appeared far more than I expected. Missed calls during therapy appointments. Calls placed to Matt during work hours, often right after we argued. She was timing things. The next thing I found made my stomach tighten. There were voice memos on Matt's phone. Short ones. All saved automatically. His phone backed them up to the cloud. He used them for podcast ideas, reminders, half-formed thoughts. One file was labeled Mom Call Recap. I listened. His voice sounded tired. Defensive. She says Erin's isolating again. That she's worried about the kids. That I need to protect them if things get worse. Protect them.
From me.
I stopped the recording halfway through. My hands were shaking too badly. I walked into the bathroom and locked the door like I was hiding from something physical. I sat on the floor, back against the tub, and tried to slow my breathing. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't miscommunication. It was a slow, 8-year construction project built quietly behind my back. Over the next week, I noticed patterns I couldn't unsee. Denise would drop by unannounced, always when Matt wasn't home. She'd glance around the house like she was inspecting it. She'd ask the kids strange questions, phrased as games. Who helps you with homework more, Mommy or Daddy? Does Mommy sleep a lot? Do you ever feel scared when Mommy's quiet? My youngest once said, Grandma says Mommy's brain gets tired. I felt something cold move through me then. Not anger. Recognition. She was creating a record. Witnesses. Narratives. That's when the paranoia really set in. I started checking the vents. The Wi-Fi router. The shared family iPad that Denise had gifted us 2 Christmases ago. I reset everything. Changed passwords again. Logged every device that accessed our network. One unfamiliar IP address kept appearing. Late at night. Always around the same time. Between 2:30 and 3 a.m. I unplugged the iPad and locked it in my trunk. The access stopped. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I was past confrontation. I was collecting gravity. Because gravity is what pulls masks down. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. At a church fundraiser dinner, Denise stood up to give a speech. She talked about resilience, about supporting family members through mental health struggles. She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. I watched faces turn toward me. Concerned smiles. Tilted heads. People nodding like they finally understood something they'd always suspected. That night, when we got home, Matt told me he thought we should consider a temporary separation. Temporary. Until I felt more stable. That word again. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I asked him one question. Before you decide anything, I said, keeping my voice steady, will you listen to something with me? He hesitated, but he nodded. I played him the 2:43 a.m. text. Then I played the voicemail Denise had left on the iPad, recorded automatically through a third-party app she didn't realize was installed. Her voice was clear.
Calm.
Confident. She's not dangerous yet, but these things escalate. You have to act before it's too late. If you wait, the court won't see you as proactive.
Court.
That word landed hard. Matt went quiet. His face drained of color. He asked me where I got it. I told him the truth. I stopped trusting what felt normal. He didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. The next morning, he called a lawyer. Not for separation. For clarification. And when Denise found out, when she realized her timing had slipped, her control loosened, she did something she'd never done before.
She panicked.
She sent emails. Too many. Too fast. She contradicted herself. She reached out to people who didn't respond the way she expected. The concern became defensive. The calm became sharp. And for the first time in 8 years, I didn't have to do anything. I just stayed still. Denise stopped sleeping after that. I know this because she told people. Not me. Never me. She told the church women, the ones who used to squeeze my hand and whisper prayers over my shoulder. She told them she was deeply concerned, that the stress was affecting her health, that she'd done everything for her family and now felt misunderstood. That word again. Misunderstood. As if truth was just a matter of perspective. The difference now was that people weren't responding the same way. When control depends on being believed, even slight hesitation feels like betrayal. Matt didn't confront her right away. That was his choice, and for once, I didn't try to manage it. I focused on something else. Something quieter. I focused on untangling myself. I met with a lawyer alone first. A woman in her late 40s with calm eyes and a voice that didn't flinch when I laid everything out.
She didn't gasp.
She didn't rush me. She listened like someone who had heard this kind of story before. When I finished, she said something I'll never forget. This isn't about whether she's malicious, she said. It's about documentation. And you have that. We filed to remove Denise's name from the property deed. It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't dramatic. It was slow, procedural, almost boring, which felt appropriate. Because boring is where manipulative people lose power. Denise found out through the title company. She showed up at our house that afternoon. Not smiling. Not with banana bread. She stood on the porch, stiff-backed, eyes scanning the cameras that no longer answered to her. She rang the doorbell once. Then again. I watched her through the window before opening the door. Her mouth was tight. Her hands clenched. She looked smaller somehow. Less polished. Like a woman who had stepped into a room and realized the furniture had been rearranged without her permission. I need to talk to my son, she said when I opened the door. Matt's not available, I said calmly. That sentence felt foreign on my tongue. Powerful.
Clean.
She leaned closer, lowering her voice. You're making a mistake. No, I said. I was living in one. She stared at me then. Really stared. Like she was searching for the version of me that used to apologize too quickly. The one who tried to smooth everything over. The one she could press. The church quietly asked her to step down from 2 committees to focus on her health. The women's group stopped inviting her to lead prayers. Her authority, built on calm concern and moral certainty, dissolved into something brittle. Matt went to therapy. Alone at first. Then with me. There were hard sessions. Uncomfortable ones. Ones where he had to confront how easily he'd accepted someone else's story about his wife. He didn't excuse it. He didn't rush forgiveness. He listened. And that mattered. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing how much silence I'd mistaken for peace. The house feels different now. The air doesn't buzz the same way at night. The Ring camera doesn't flicker. The kids stopped asking strange questions. My body stopped bracing for footsteps that never came. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that text. 2:43 a.m. I think about how many nights she spent awake, planning, watching, nudging lives in directions she thought she controlled. I think about how easily it could have gone on if she hadn't slipped. That's the thing about people who believe they're always right. They stop being careful. I didn't ruin her reputation. I didn't confront her publicly. I didn't demand apologies she couldn't give. I let the truth stand long enough to be seen. Now, when people ask how things are with my mother-in-law, I say, quiet. And I mean it in the best possible way. Because quiet after years of manipulation feels like freedom.